A decade ago, Greg, my ex-husband, spewed venomous words that still echo in my memory. Women her age are clearly superior. As an older woman, you're embarrassing to talk to. I regret marrying someone as immature as Greg. If only I could turn back time, I'd redo my life. My name is Zoe, aged 47. At 32, I tied the knot with Greg, who was 5 years my junior. We met at the hospital where I work as a nurse, and he had just completed his medical internship. Despite our age gap and differing professional roles, Greg's eagerness to seek my advice and his innocence drew me towards him. Our daily conversations gradually evolved into a romantic relationship. Initially apprehensive about our age difference, I found solace in Greg's nonchalance towards it. 2 years into our relationship, we exchanged vows. However, after 4 years of marriage, Greg's demeanor changed, and he began hurling hurtful remarks, expressing his regret at not marrying a younger woman. He openly flirted with young nurses at the hospital, a behavior I chose to ignore until the day I discovered his infidelity with a former patient, a woman 9 years my junior, already carrying his child. His laughter as he justified his affair pierced me deeply. Unable to tolerate his betrayal, I agreed to a divorce and sought alimony. Naturally, this decision enraged Greg, who believed he should be rewarded for enduring our marriage. His father's indifference to his son's wrongdoing added insult to injury, with Greg adamantly refusing to pay. Reluctantly, I sought legal assistance. Enduring hurtful remarks during our marriage and facing his infidelity, I refused to back down. Silently, with the lawyer's guidance, I rightfully received the alimony I deserved. We parted ways, and I began living alone, terminating our shared apartment lease. Greg's departure to a new hospital came with more insults, leaving behind judgmental whispers that plagued me. The constant gossip eventually took a toll on my mental well-being, prompting my decision to leave the hospital. After a period of aimless drifting, realizing my love for both work and physical activity, I actively sought out a new professional environment. Fortunately, a small maternity clinic just 2 blocks away from my current residence was hiring nurses. Following the interview, I was immediately welcomed into the team. Despite the clinic's minimal staff of both doctors and nurses, the atmosphere felt warm and inviting, conducive to providing excellent care for patients. During one of the clinic's relatively calm days, a pregnant woman referred from another hospital arrived for her appointment. Upon hearing her name, which happened to be the same as Greg's affair partner, I couldn't help but wonder if it was just a coincidence. Confirming her husband's name as Greg, a doctor, it became undeniable that she was indeed my ex-husband's current spouse. Despite the unexpected encounter, I hesitated to reveal their connection to anyone else. As days passed, I found myself unable to address the situation. Then one day, Greg and his wife came in for a checkup. Greg's eyes widened in surprise upon seeing me, clearly not expecting our paths to cross again. Truthfully, I had hoped to avoid such encounters, especially in a setting like this. "What are you doing here?" Greg's accusatory tone made his wife realize who I was. "Wait, did you come here to harass us?" His words stung, and I struggled to explain that I have been working at the clinic long before knowing of their proximity. Disregarding my explanation, Greg continued his tirade, accusing me of stalking them and causing trouble. Despite being clearly in the wrong, his words drew judgmental stares from those around us, making me feel uncomfortable. Fearing for their safety, Greg's wife feigned distress, insinuating that I posed a threat to her and the baby. With that, the attending physician intervened, urging me to leave the examination room to diffuse the tension. While I understood the necessity of prioritizing the patient's well-being, the encounter left me feeling shaken and unfairly judged. I found myself in a situation I didn't want to be in, feeling utterly miserable with the details of my divorce now known, something I had hoped to keep private. I became acutely aware of the judgmental glances around me. Greg's wife continued to visit the hospital, openly criticizing me, further adding to my discomfort. Despite knowing I was innocent, I felt torn between avoiding upsetting her and respecting her privacy. With over 5 months until her due date, the thought of enduring this environment seemed unbearable. Despite the clinic being a good workplace, I felt compelled to resign. The director's expression hinted at relief, though I couldn't help but wonder why I deserved such treatment. Worn down by everything, I couldn't muster the energy to hunt for another hospital gig, so I retreated to my parents' abode. They greeted me with open arms but sparse words. For a stretch I grappled with finding my purpose, feeling the weight of guilt for merely lounging at home without contributing. Eventually, I opted for a part-time stint at a nearby grocery store. It marked my debut outside the hospital realm, and it felt like a breath of fresh air, a shift in pace. Though I cherished nursing and found it deeply rewarding, the burden of responsibility in a setting where lives hung in the balance was crushing. Being away from that scene proved beneficial for my mental well-being. I endeavored to not be a burden on my folks, striving to stand on my own 2 feet. Looking back, I wished I'd returned home sooner. Around 2 years later, while still dwelling with my parents, an offer to join the grocery store full-time came my way. They acknowledged my diligence, and I was genuinely elated to accept the offer. Over time, I was approached with matchmaking proposals. However, at 44, I had no interest in remarriage, politely declining each time. I was taken aback when the manager insisted the prospective partner was also divorced, akin to my circumstance. Despite my initial reluctance, the offer lingered in my thoughts. I relented to the arranged meeting, considering our shared maturity. We agreed to meet sans intermediaries. Upon reaching the designated restaurant, my matchmaking counterpart was already there. As I entered, he abruptly rose, sending his chair crashing to the ground. His face flushed crimson, yet despite his embarrassment, I couldn't stifle a chuckle. It felt straight out of a novel. "I'm Quentin. Thank you for coming today," he said, composing himself. "Nice to meet you. I'm Zoe," I replied. Perhaps owing to the initial blunder, we swiftly found ourselves at ease. I learned Quentin had stumbled upon our supermarket during a work trip and had been smitten with me at first glance. He'd persuaded the department manager, who happened to be his senior from university, to set up our meeting. "I'd like to pursue a serious relationship if possible," Quentin confessed. I had come prepared to decline, but unexpectedly, I found myself wanting to see him again. After 8 months of dating, we decided to get married. My parents liked Quentin's personality, and they were genuinely happy for us. Our life together, filled with Quentin's care and consideration, was truly blissful. Since we were both older, we hadn't planned to have children from the start. However, when I turned 47, my health took an unexpected turn. I wasn't feeling unwell, I was pregnant. I never imagined I'd be pregnant at this age, and certainly didn't expect my discomfort to be morning sickness. I suspect Quentin felt the same way when I shared the news. "It looks like I'm pregnant," I said. Quentin responded naturally, "That's wonderful. So who's pregnant? Do I know the person?" "Yeah, I think you know her very well. She's right in front of you," I replied, pointing to myself. Quentin looked bewildered, staring at my belly. "Ha, I'm the one who's pregnant," I clarified. He remained silent for a moment, processing the news. Then, with wide eyes, he asked, "Wait, so you mean we'll be parents?" "Yes, it seems that way," I confirmed. "Really?" he exclaimed. "Wow," as he hugged me tightly. "I could hardly believe it. Unbelievable. It's a miracle," I whispered. "Is it okay if I go through with it?" While I had never considered not having the baby, my age was a factor. Thinking about the future made me anxious. Even at the hospital they asked, "What will you do?" I understood the risks of advanced maternal age for both mother and child. Not everyone would agree with our decision. People might question how old we'd be when our child turned 18. The uncertainty of parenting at this age also worried me. Still, I couldn't bear the thought of ending a life that had taken root. "What are you saying?" "Of course it's natural." Quentin's immediate response made me happy. I believed it reflected Quentin's genuine feelings. However, after a while, he started worrying about my health. Even for a man like Quentin, I could imagine the potential challenges. We discussed it thoroughly, and our desire to have the baby remained unchanged. We began preparations with the doctor's guidance. Both our parents were surprised and concerned, but they were genuinely thrilled. And so it was decided that I would give birth at a well-equipped large hospital. The obstetrician was a very caring and competent doctor, which was reassuring. On one of the prenatal checkup days, not only the obstetrician, but also an internal medicine doctor came for extra precaution. Quentin was supposed to be there too, but unfortunately, he had urgent work and couldn't make it. So I entered the examination room alone. To my surprise, there was my ex-husband, Greg. Honestly, encountering him again in such a place felt unbelievable. Ha! Seriously? You're a 47-year-old pregnant woman? It's impossible to give birth at your age, he burst out laughing. The obstetrician and the nurse present both had puzzled expressions, but Greg paid no attention. You have no right to say such things. I'm just concerned, I retorted. A grandma getting pregnant? It's gross, he continued. Is that how you treat patients? Even without the anxiety that pregnant women already face, spewing such hurtful words is unbelievable. And you call yourself a doctor? I asked. What are you acting all high and mighty for? Besides, this hospital mostly caters to celebrities. Do you even realize that? I continued. It'd be better for you to leave before embarrassing yourself, doctor, Greg said. I'll leave without being told. Giving birth in a hospital where doctors like you work? No way, I replied. Yeah, just go, doctor, Greg sneered, pointing towards the door. It's hard to believe a doctor would say such things. Quentin, my husband, walked in just as Greg turned pale. Sorry for being late. My wife was... Quentin began, sensing the tension in the room. Observing my angry expression, Greg's pale face, and the overall atmosphere, he stopped mid-sentence. What's wrong? He asked. I was told by this Dr. Greg that it's disgusting to give birth at 47, I explained. Seeing Quentin's concern, his expression changed instantly upon hearing those words. Greg, you're Greg, right? You insulted my wife. Quentin's voice was stern. Greg stammered, denying the accusation, but Quentin pressed on. How can you insult a patient like that? What kind of hospital is this? I can't trust this hospital with my precious wife and unborn child, Quentin said. Just then, the nurse who had left earlier returned with the director, Mr. Carter. I've heard a few rude things said here, director said. I thought this was a reliable hospital because my father recommended it, but I didn't know they had a doctor like this. It seems I chose the wrong hospital. I'm very sorry, Quentin said. No, that's not true. This man is not our doctor, the director clarified, surprising us. I just fired him. I didn't know he was such a person. I just let him in because a friend asked me to. We don't need a doctor who spits out such insults. He'll never appear in front of you again, the director, Mr. Carter, reiterated. Hey, director, what are you saying? Greg protested, but the director silenced him. Shut up and be quiet. You get out of here right now. Don't ever come near our hospital again, the director said. Hearing the director's words, Greg protested, but the obstetrician who was there dragged him out of the hallway. The director apologized profusely, and we regained our composure and sat back down. However, Quentin was still angry. Did you kick him out because my father donated to this hospital? If not, would you let a doctor like him run wild? The director shook his head and explained, Actually, Greg had only been at this hospital for a week. Greg's father was my classmate, and they had a reunion the other day. He asked me to hire his son. I had no idea he was such a person, Mr. Carter continued, and he looked truly sorry. Not all the doctors at this hospital were like Greg. The obstetrician in charge was a very good doctor. If Greg wasn't there, I would want to give birth here, I said, and Quentin agreed. Quentin's father was the president of a large company with branches all over the country, and he donated part of his profits to medical and welfare facilities. His mother had been seriously ill when she was young and had been taken care of by this hospital, so he donated a lot of money. That's why his father recommended this hospital for my delivery. A few days later, Greg contacted me and begged me to ask the director to hire him back. If you ask for me, maybe he'll reconsider, he pleaded. Greg had often offended patients with his arrogant attitude and had been hopping from one hospital to another. I couldn't believe he kept making the same mistakes. His father had told him that if he got fired again, he would have no future. But I couldn't help wondering if his father's leniency had made him such a man. Quentin was next to me when Greg called. He snatched the phone from me and yelled at Greg, threatening to report him to the police for harassment if he ever contacted me or came near me again. He must have been scared because he never called again. Sometime later, I stopped by a convenience store on my way back from the hospital and saw Greg working there. Apparently, no hospital would hire him anymore. He was crying his eyes out, saying that his wife and child had left him. But I felt no sympathy for him. I just decided to avoid that convenience store. The following year, I gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She was so adorable. I vowed to raise her with love and responsibility no matter what. But Quentin was smitten with her from the moment she was born. He seemed to be a very sweet father, so I had to be careful.